So I finished a little game called the Callisto Protocol twice now, and I have some interesting things to say about it. This game is created by Striking Distance Studios and published by Krafton, and it received a lot of mixed reviews due to performance issues, lacking important content behind the season pass, and not living up to Dead Space. Because of these issues addressed by the reviewers, I was disappointed that I had to wait until the game was actually fixed and had all the planned content released, and that's what I did. I bought the deluxe edition at $40 and I finally played the game just recently. Having played the game now myself, even with low expectations and all the content added into the game, I'm really sad to say that this game still managed to let me down. Guys, I'm just kidding. Or am I? Why not start talking about the Callisto Protocol? First, let's talk about the gameplay. As I mentioned before, this game was marketed to be a spiritual successor to Dead Space, considering that this game was directed by the Dead Space creator himself, Glenn Schofield. And you might be asking, does the Callisto Protocol live up to what made Dead Space one of the best horror games ever made? Well, it's a yes and no situation. Yes, because it does borrow some iconic elements from Dead Space, like a HUD that is placed within the game's world, namely a health bar on your character and ammunition number on your weapons, a telekinetic ability that lets you grab things, a weapon upgrade machine, and some extremely brutal game over deaths. Even with all the things that I mentioned, this game overall does not feel like a Dead Space successor, because the main focus of the gameplay is melee combat, and the best way that I can describe it is that it's basically a 3D version of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. All you do during the combat in this entire game is basically dodge left or right, beat the hell out of your opponent a few times with a baton, dodge left or right again, and beat them again until they're dead. And what's bad about it? The answer is that there's no timing for the dodge mechanic. All you have to do is hold the left analog stick to either left or right, and you'll be fine. You don't have to time it whatsoever. As long as you push the stick to whichever side, you will not get hit. You also have the ability to block by pushing the stick down, but that also has no timing requirement. And that's what you are going to do for the rest of the game, and it is extremely repetitive. You also get some guns, but if I'm being honest, they all suck, even if you upgrade them at maximum. The only reason for their existence is for the weak points that will appear on screen to weaken your opponent. The worst gun in the game for me was the shotgun, because it takes like 4 or 5 shells to take out one zombie.
That's bullshit!
But what's really bad about the combat in this game is that it was not made for a group of opponents for you to fight against. It works perfectly fine for one enemy, but not for more than 2 enemies. You don't even have the ability to select whichever opponent you want to focus beating on, like you can in the Souls franchise. The camera in this game forces you to focus on a single opponent, and it's only up to the game itself which enemy I'm gonna kill first. The only way for you to deal with a herd of enemies is the use of your telekinetic glove, which has limited use by the way. Just grab the enemies and throw them into grinders and spikes, killing them instantly. I also need to mention that the telekinetic glove is only used for the combat, and that's it. We'll talk about that later. As for the third-person camera in this game, I have to say that there are so many occasions in the game where the camera seems to be way too close to the main character, and it prevents me from enjoying the environment. I have never witnessed such a misplaced over-the-shoulder view since the Amazing Spider-Man 1 video game. It's just not good. The next thing I wanna talk about is the enemy variety, because there's almost none. You are facing off some space zombies who, instead of eating people like normal zombies, these creatures feel like they were created to be champions for some WWE matches. The only thing they do is swinging their arms left and right, and if they finish you off, they won't eat you, but they will stomp you to death, cut your head off, or amputate one of your limbs. This game over deaths are brutally awesome, don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel horrified whatsoever. We'll talk about the horror later. as mentioned, this game has no variety of unique enemies. I mean, there are some zombies that can transform their arms and bodies to have more health and deal more damage if you don't kill them fast enough, but they have the exact same attack pattern. And you still use the same strategy that you do for normal zombies. Dodge left and right and beat them up. You also encounter creatures that spit at you, didn't see that one before, but they also have the same melee attack pattern. Later in the game, you encounter blind zombies, and guess what? They are basically clickers from The Last of Us, but they look worse design-wise. That's not the real problem though. The issue is that even if you alert one of these blind enemies, you will not get killed instantly. You will witness the exact same attack pattern as the opponents from before. Like really? That's the punishment that I get for not being sneaky enough?
You'll have to do better than that.
Also, they aren't even hard to sneak by, because if you kill one near the other, your character kills the creature very loudly and the other one nearby just doesn't hear it or care for some reason. There is just no challenge from these enemies whatsoever. The only enemies that possess an instant kill ability are these security unit robots. If they spot you, you get instantly killed from their bullets. Unfortunately, they only appear 3 times throughout this entire game. The first one appears during a cutscene, and then you have to sneak past them. And then the other 2 appear, and you can determinately destroy them by shooting their heads. They aren't that hard to kill. That's all I can say about the enemy variety in this game. It is very lackluster. Other than some additional abilities, they all have the exact same attack pattern.
How disappointing.
Let's talk about the level design and the pacing of this game. The story takes place in Black Iron Prison, located on Callisto, one of the moons of Jupiter. And I was really excited to learn the story and the design of this prison, to feel motivated to explore this entire place. Unfortunately, that is not the case here, because this game is extremely linear and there is no backtracking or interconnection for us to learn about the place piece by piece. Now, I don't have a problem with a game being linear, but there is a lot of things that I just find frustrating and completely forgettable about the pacing in this game. You know why places like the Spencer Mansion from Resident Evil, the RPD from RE2, the Sevastopol Station from Alien Isolation, the town from Silent Hill, and USG Ishimura from Dead Space are so memorable and iconic? Because they have backtracking, and they have parts of the map that I can revisit anytime, because I either didn't solve a puzzle or there's just some items that I couldn't grab because of my limited inventory. The Callisto Protocol has no backtracking, and if you happen to approach some items that you wanna get but you can't due to limited inventory, then you have no option but to either move on or make an exchange. For a game that takes place in prison, I really didn't feel like a prisoner, because the level layout in this game is mostly just corridors. You also can't tell which path leads you to an optional area and the other to the main objective, because you have no map or an indication line that tells you which is the main path. As for the pacing of this game, everything that this game offers you to do is get from point A to point B, beat some enemies, crawl through vents, squeeze through gaps, repeat and repeat, and that's it.
What?
Speaking of vents, this game might as well be called the Vents Protocol, because you spend 80% of the game crawling through the ventilation shaft, and it just makes the game more boring, slower and pace killer. There is a difference between hiding a loading screen and just reusing the same level layout to avoid assets popping in. I shouldn't forget to say that there are some parts in the game where the level design just makes no sense lore-wise. Like, why the hell is there a ventilation shaft in this area when I can easily just walk through this door by cutting the ribbon from this electric box? What is the point of the vent near it? Also, the entire prison is filled with spike walls and deadly grinders where anyone can easily die by accident. It makes no sense, especially in places like a security room and the morgue. What is the point of these spikes other than having the player use them to kill their enemies easier? I know this is just a video game, but it's still trying to tell a story that is supposed to be taken seriously, and it fails miserably. We'll talk about that later. As for the inventory system, it is absolutely garbage, because for some stupid reason I cannot hold more than 12 pistol bullets in one slot, and more than one healing injector in one other slot. This caused me to always have my inventory filled, and it frustrated the hell out of me. This inventory system doesn't work for this game because it's a linear game, and there are no storage boxes for you to keep your items away, like the one from Dead Space. It is very unbalanced. Last but not least, let's talk about the puzzles in this game. Well, there is none in this 10-hour experience.
What?
All you do in this game is gathering those gate fuses that aren't hard to find, and you just place them to another level. That's it. You can also move boxes to different places, but what is the challenge exactly? None. You don't even get to use your telekinetic glove to solve puzzles like you can in Dead Space. This game is filled with so many missed opportunities, and it's hard for me to think that this game is actually coming from the same director who created Dead Space. What gives? I think I got all my thoughts on the gameplay out, so let's talk about the story. Honestly, there's nothing really to spoil because there are no surprises or interesting aspects about the plot that will make you smile or go,
Wow.
why is that the case? Let's find out. The story begins with a news report which tells us that there has been a terrorist attack on Europa and the blame is put on this woman named Dani Nakamura, played by Karen Fukuhara. We are transiting to a cargo ship piloted by Jacob Lee, the main protagonist of the game played by George Duhamel, and his partner Max Barrow, played by Jeff Shine. They talk some whatever nonsense, then they hear a strange noise around their ship, and Jacob goes to investigate the source of that noise. He finds out that his ship has been boarded by this group of terrorists called the Outer Way, led by the same woman that we saw from the news report, Danny. Jacob tries to defend himself and his partner by opening the cargo door to get rid of these terrorists, but Danny shoots the window from the pilot door and it causes the ship to crash on Callisto. Jacob and Max brace themselves on their seats. Jacob managed to survive, but Max did not for some reason, because he got a flesh cut on his face and I don't know how he got it. I don't see fire or anything sharp on the pilot console. Did he not wear his seatbelt while crashing? You know what? That's not what bothers me about this scene. What bothers me is that Jacob's ship crashed on Callisto, a frozen moon of Jupiter. His ship is in a complete wreck. There's a security unit cutting a door on the ship, and Jacob is not suffocating from the lack of oxygen. Like seriously, how is he not showing any signs of dying from the lack of oxygen? He's on a fucking moon. Don't worry, it gets even worse on the next scene. As I mentioned before, a security unit from a prison called the Black Iron, which consists of two robots and a man named Captain Ferris played by goddamn Sam Witwer, they cut the door in the ship and Ferris comes in with an oxygen mask on his face. That just means a human can't breathe outside of a ship or a building on this moon. So how the hell did Jacob not die from the lack of oxygen like 2 minutes ago? He doesn't even put the mask on immediately when Ferris gives it to him. What's that? I smell lazy writing. So Ferris gives Jacob a mask, even though he was just doing fine without it. They go outside and one of the robots shows up capturing Danny, who somehow survived the crash of the ship. I don't know how she managed to do that because last time I recall, she was just holding on to one handle and she had no sort of safe equipment. Wait a minute, you're telling me that Max gets killed from the crash, even with the seat protection on him, but Danny gets out of this situation without a scratch? No injuries? I'm about 12 minutes in this game and I'm already witnessing uses of plot armor. That's not a good sign if you ask me. Captain Ferris gets orders from the warden of the prison and he tells her to hold Jacob captive as well. The game never explains the reason why the warden did that, but whatever. They drive the prisoners on a snowcat and for some reason they do not have Jacob and Danny restrained. They might not escape, but they sure as hell could kill each other considering the grudge that Jacob showed against her like 1 minute ago. Anyways, Jacob tries to convince Ferris that he is innocent, but he can't do anything because it's only up to the warden. Speaking of which, here comes the hologram of Warden Duncan Cole, played by James Mattis III. He makes some boring speeches that no one cares for, and guess what? He spends most of the game just talking bullshit through holograms. And he doesn't win my attention in any way, shape or form. It's not the actor's fault. I am blaming it on the one responsible for this lame script.
You know they call Callisto the dead moon. Dead. Just like you would have been if I hadn't fished you out of that wreck.
I sure as hell did not witness any fair ellipses in this moment. Jacob and Danny are being escorted in the Black Iron prison. Jacob meets up with Dr. Mahler, played by Louise Barnes, and she puts him on a chair with restraints around his arms to implant a core device on his back neck. And I never understood what the purpose of it was, other than showing the health bar towards the player. It doesn't seem to provide a service for the prison against its prisoners. Anyway, Jacob ends up in his cell, he's hallucinating this purple cube, and he gets jumped by his dead co-pilot. did I forget to mention that this game is not scary at all? Because it relies on jump scares. Like, oh my god. In like every 5 minutes of this game, you'll be jump scared in various ways. There is even one enemy aspect whose only purpose is to annoy the player. This snakehead thing, which grabs you instantly. You do not have any time to react and shoot it before it attacks you. And you have to button mash your controller to kill it. There is another enemy aspect that is only made to steal your HP right away. And that is those alien leeches. They appear in some boxes that you open, but there's no way for you to avoid them. You either open the box and lose some HP, or just don't open it and move on. They actually thought I was gonna get scared because a loud sound effect occurs on the frame. Or the fact that I have to button mash this snakehead thing out of my face. Or kill a leech that jumps on me. There is one instance where I got grabbed by the same creature 3 times in a row. What the hell were they thinking? I know Dead Space had jump scares as well, but there was a balance. It wasn't done repeatedly, and they weren't even scripted for the most part. Just, You know what? Because there's so many cheap jump scares in this entire game that aren't even scary in the slightest, I'm gonna use the Mario Death sound effect every time they pop up. Enjoy! Anyways, back to the story. Jacob wakes up from his cell and already there is an outbreak happening in this prison. Jacob escapes from his cell pretty easily and he meets up with another prisoner, Elias, played by Zeke Alton. Elias tells Jacob to get to the controller so he can open his cell door, even though Jacob freed himself just fine by moving the door himself. Anyways, Jacob succeeds in freeing Elias. They meet up again, but they split again to meet up in a different place. As I mentioned before, most of Jacob's shenanigans in this adventure is beating enemies, crawling through vents, beating enemies, squeezing through gaps, beating enemies, and more jump scares. You know what? Because of how boring the story is in this game, I am only gonna talk about the important parts of the plot, so I can avoid spending more than 1 hour talking shit about this game. After an hour of boring bullshit, Jacob reaches a security tower where he meets up with Captain Ferris again, but he gets spotted and Ferris plays with its image like a puppet. This cutscene is just there to remind us that Sam Witwer was in a much better game, and I wish I had played that instead. Ferris goes insane because he doesn't know how the outbreak occurred and he blames Jacob for it. Jacob then saves himself by letting some infected inmates out to keep Ferris busy. Did you see what I just saw? I am telling you, these zombies are basically WWE fighters. Much stronger than John Cena and The Rock in every possible way.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, Cena.
Necessity. To do what is required. To make the hard choices. As your new warden, I will do what is necessary.
You know what? I don't have time listening to your bullshit, Mr. Warden. I'm too busy trying to survive in this fucking shithole. Moving on, there's more things happening that I don't care for. Jacob is on an elevator on the way to the control room of the shoe cells, and he tries to contact Elias.
Elias? I'm in the elevator. I see the shoe. Elias, you there? Elias, can you hear me?
Oh, he's dead, so I guess we are on our own.
Sorry for not responding. This thing's found a way inside here. Really tearing up the place.
What the fuck? Like seriously, what the hell was this for? Why did Elias just not respond to Jacob? Why did he scare us like that? He apologizes for it, yes, but he never explained why he didn't answer on Jacob's call. As you can see, he's just fine. He wasn't attacked by anything or anyone, and he wasn't even injured. What the hell was his reason for not responding? This moment of suspense went absolutely nowhere, and it only took 10 seconds. Why did we have to waste 10 seconds for this bullshit? All it did was to make us go. What the goddamn ever. The next thing Jacob and Elias do is to find a particular inmate that will have them pilot a ship or something, and you're not gonna guess who it is. Jacob reaches their cell, which appears to be empty, but Jacob, for some reason, isn't smart enough to check the left corner of the cell door before opening it in case he won't get ambushed, and he does by none other than Danny. What's even worse is that Jacob doesn't even try to open the cell door like he did in his own cell. Danny didn't lock it at all. She didn't have any keys on her hands, and Jacob could easily just move it to the left side. But no, we had to have a trust issue drama and discussing, didn't we? Anyways, there's more beating zombies crawling through vents, whoopity-doo. Then Jacob reaches a habitation dome where there is trees and vegetation everywhere. Now I don't know much about the vegetation biology myself, but this place is located on a frozen moon of Jupiter, and the Jupiter planet is far away from the sun. If you intend to grow trees and different plants on a natural satellite, don't you need water, oxygen, and sunlight for them to be grown naturally? There is no daylight cycle on this fucking moon. It's always midnight, and I didn't see any UV lamps anywhere in this garden. Well, it's a sci-fi horror game. Who cares? Anything goes. Jacob meets up with Elias again, and they finally get their spacesuits. Then Captain Ferris Ex Machina comes out of nowhere, opens the airlock door from the outside, and sucks both Jacob and Elias out of the building. Okay, I have two questions at this moment. First, what is this guy's problem with Jacob? He has only met Jacob for like an hour, yet he takes things very personal towards him. I know the outbreak happened in the same day when Jacob crashed his ship and got arrested, but that had nothing to do with people turning into zombies all of a sudden, at least not directly. If the cargo ship crash really pissed him off personally, why didn't he just go after Danny? Jacob just told him that she was the one that caused his ship to crash to begin with. My second and last question is, how the hell did Jacob and Elias get sucked out like that? On Callisto, there is a thick atmosphere, and you can walk normally just like you do on Earth. Yet here, Jacob and Elias get sucked out like they are getting into vacuum space. This makes no sense, and it's only there for plot purposes. Speaking of drama, Jacob's visor didn't close due to malfunction, and he is immediately gasping for breath. Wait, so now he has a hard time breathing in the atmosphere of Callisto? How come he was breathing just fine at the beginning of the game when he didn't even have a spacesuit on? To anyone who wants to become a writer in the future, whether it's movies, video games, books, TV shows, here's a pro tip for you. Continuity is not a polite suggestion. Jacob succeeds in activating his oxygen visor by plunging his ship on the helmet. I don't know how that works, but okay. Then his objective is to reunite with Elias for the very last time. I have no idea how he flew farther than Jacob after being sucked out, but what the shit ever. Jacob finds Elias lying on the ground, his visor got broke, and then he dies. He dies right after we were actually about to know his character, when he and Jacob were suiting up in the airlock.
Look, it's a long time ago, yeah? I was defending myself. Wrong place, wrong time. I was used to blame everyone else. But then I realized this was on me. You can't keep running from what you've done.
The only thing we know about him is that he kills someone, he regrets it, and in the next few minutes, he dies. Now where have I seen this kind of character treatment?
Thanks.
Oh well, Elias dies on Jacob's hands, then la-di-da-di-da, a snowcat comes in, with Danny inside? Where the hell has she been this whole time? Where did she get a spacesuit, a shotgun, and a goddamn snowcat? How did she manage to get this whole equipment on a prison planet she has never been before? You know what? I should stop asking questions, because if the story doesn't care to give me important context, then I have no reason to care about what's happening in this soulless narrative. Then he stops by to get the core device from Elias, and this plot point never comes up again later in the story. I played this game twice now, and I don't recall Danny ever bringing up Eliza's core device in any later cutscenes of the game. It did not advance the story in any way, shape or form.
Wait!
Where do you think you're going?
I'm a pilot, you need me!
Hangar's that way. Better start walking.
You are going to the same destination as Jacob. I know there is trust issues here and there, but you both have the exact same goal, and there's just no reason to split up. Whatever, Jacob goes on his own, he approaches an area, and you meet a guy who speaks with you through some speakers.
Hey! Hey! You out there! Hey, see if you can find something to pry this door open. Those access tunnels lead to the snowcat garage. I can get us inside.
I don't know exactly where his voice was coming from, and I was trying to figure out where this person was located, and I found nothing except one zombie banging on one door. In the next seconds, you are forced to hold your ground and deal with some stealth enemies. Didn't see that before. And when this sequence ends, the guy on the speaker dies off screen, and I guess he turns into a zombie or something. This sequence did nothing but make me gather even more questions. Who is this guy? What was his purpose to the story, and why should I care about him? The only logical answer to his existence is for dramatic effect, and that's not okay. I want things to happen for a directional reason. You can't just throw random stuff in this game just for the sake of it. Next up, Jacob's current objective is to get to a hangar. He reaches a building, he fights more enemies, blah blah blah, he meets up with Danny again, and they finally decide to cooperate.
Oh yeah, why's that? Huh? You left me out there to die?
And you tried to kill me back on your ship. Guess that makes us even.
Except he didn't, you moron. You are the one who boarded his ship like pirates and tried to kill him, thus making him open the cargo door to get rid of your ass. I would not call someone defending themselves from a dangerous person as someone trying to kill that threat. From what I see, this was nothing but self-defense. I mean, yeah, what Jacob did would have resulted in you getting killed, but that was going to be a second-degree murder. He literally did it because you were dangerous to him. What kind of a reaction did you expect for him to have when you boarded his ship like a terrorist? It does not make you even whatsoever.
If I can get that snowcat fixed, it'll get us to the hangar.
Wait a second, didn't you already have a working snowcat like 15 minutes ago? What the hell happened to it? Did it get overrun by the zombies? I didn't see it anywhere outside of the building. You wanna know how Danny tries to win Jacob's trust? She gives him the only gun that she was possessing to defend herself from the monsters. She doesn't even possess a baton or a pistol from her hand in case she will encounter more monsters. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have a new weapon, but Danny literally has nothing to defend herself with at this moment. Plus, as I mentioned before, this shotgun is garbage. I guess I should at least be happy that I don't have to escort her ass during gameplay. So, yay? Jacob and Danny end up getting a new snowcat. They get to the hangar, but first Danny goes back to Jacob's ship and Danny makes Jacob open one of his cargo boxes.
But records show you made multiple drops right before the incident.
Me and a dozen other cargo ships.
Don't try to talk your way out of this. I know you were involved.
I had nothing to do with what happened on your own boat.
After this waste of time, Jacob and Danny finally reach the hangar. They go on the top of the hangar and they call an abandoned ship towards the landing point to fly out of Callisto. Wait, why the hell is there an empty ship flying in outer space? Were the pilots dead on that ship, or did they just pilot the ship in that position and just took the escape pods? No, you know what? Skip. Cole shoots the ship down to prevent the escape, no surprise to anyone. And now take a look at this Oscar-worthy reaction from Jacob. We now get to the very first action set piece of the game, falling through the debris. Gee, never seen this type of action before. Jacob falls through the building at the bottom and he gets a vision of the Europa incident. Honest question, did anyone who actually played this game and reached this part of the story actually fall for the most obvious setup for a jump scare? Did this moment actually make you go, oh my god? If it did, you drop this. Jacob and Danny end up in the underground and they leave their helmets behind, even though they could still possibly go back outside. Fuck it. And ladies and gentlemen, I present you the most next-gen gaming of all generations. Walking and climbing down a bunch of debris for 4 minutes. It may not sound too long, but if you play this part yourself, it feels like it drags on for too long. And surprise surprise, Jacob falls towards the bottom, separated from Danny, and there is more repetitive gameplay. Just skip ahead. Jacob then uses a digger vehicle to move forward. Another idea taken from Dead Space 2. And this just makes me wish I was playing that instead. Here's another issue, this game suffers from an identity crisis. Does it want to be Dead Space or does it want to be its own thing? Make up your damn mind, Gabe. You can't just make a generic melee focused gameplay to separate it from the third person shooting one from Dead Space and still intend to reuse set pieces ideas from that franchise. That's not gonna make me forgive the game's problems at all. Anyways, you hold your ground against more zombies again, and I just do that by throwing them off the machine. Next up, you are facing off your very first boss fight in the game. I have a few nice things to say about this boss fight. First off, this boss design looks generic as hell. He's just a two-headed monster with a half-split body. Secondly, this boss fight is not hard at all unless the level design screws you up in some occasions. You can dodge his attacks very easily. Just like the normal enemies, all you have to do is hold your analog stick to either left or right and you'll be just fine. You can literally dodge this boss for an eternity without getting a single hit. Try this out yourself. Also, you cannot use your baton on this guy until it falls on its knees. Last but not least, you are forced to fight this asshole for the rest of this chapter and the next one. Not once, not twice, not thrice, but 4 times. Not only is this boss fight reused like 3 times throughout this game, but there's nothing different about this boss when you fight it later in the game. He has the exact same attack pattern, the same phases, and you use the same strategy as before to take it out. This is something that I will only expect in a video game project made by a college student, not a fucking AAA title with $1 million budget. Did they run out of ideas or something? If this is not what I would call lazy game design, then I don't know what it is. What will Wesker say about this design choice?
Your lack of creativity disappoints me. I expected more from you.
There is more shit happening that I just don't care for, so let's just skip ahead. Jacob and Danny's current plan is to go back to the Black Iron prison, and they reach the main source of the zombie outbreak. And then here comes...
5, 2, 1. You mean we got some unfinished business?
Oh, sandwich, Captain Ferris. I forgot you were in this game for the past 4 hours. Well, since we are here, I have a question. How the hell did this guy become infected? Because last time I recall, Ferris fell to his doom through a window by one of the zombies, and these zombies don't even use their teeth to kill human beings. It's even more questionable when later on, after you have a small fight with him, if you can call this a boss fight, Jacob and Danny escape from Ferris. Danny is attacked by a leech sucking on her face and she gets infected. So, is that the only way to get infected with the virus? Why am I still asking questions again?
We're gonna finish this thing together. Okay?
Honestly, at this point, I don't care what's gonna happen to anyone in this game. Skip! Jacob and Danny reach the infected Shoe prison. They get ambushed by some security robots, and one of them drags Jacob back to his cell, where it all started.
Find me.
Waller?
There's not much time.
Oh, it's the doctor that we met at the very beginning of the game. I sure as hell missed someone that I forgot they even existed.
There's not much time. I was able to reroute one of the security units. I have Danny.
Where is she?
The lab, at the heart of the prison. He's monitoring everything, but we can talk here. I can get you to the warden. I can cure her. I want to help.
Wait, so you hacked these robots to obey you? Then why the hell did you have one of the robots take me back to the cell? You could have easily just had them escort Jacob to the same location as Danny. So we didn't have to go through another unnecessary route of beating bullshit and getting jump scared. Skip, skip, skip. Jacob reaches Mauler's location and she gives him an ejector to link his core device with Dennis to learn the real truth through her memory. Mauler tells Jacob she has no intentions to escape Callisto and she leaves the room. Jacob's next objective is to take a sample from an alpha creature and inject it through Danny's body to save her. She wakes up and they are both heading towards Warden's tower. On the way, Jacob gets another hallucination of the Europa incident.
Let me go! Look at it! Look at it! What are you talking about? See?
Jacob, what do you got there?
What we got here is none of our business. Now, come on. We've got a job to do.
Lily! Sorry. I tried to protect you.
Europa wasn't a terrorist attack. They doctored the footage to cover up what they were planning to test in Black Iron. And the cargo that we transported played a part in both. I could have stopped this, but I didn't.
You made the wrong choice.
Okay, so Jacob is the main reason why the Europa incident happened in the first place. Fine. But the thing is that it doesn't make any sense to blame Jacob for this incident. Jacob was just a cargo pilot. His job was to deliver cargo, no matter what kind of stuff he was delivering. Could he have stopped the incident? Sure. But all he saw was a tube with a bug inside of it. There is no way he could have assumed he was delivering something that would cause a zombie outbreak. This is just the same energy as this scene from the first Spider-Man movie, when a cop is blaming a citizen for not doing a cop's job.
What the hell's the matter with you? You let him go!
Jacob then wakes up again and he leaves Danny behind to get a cue for her from the top of Warden's tower. He eventually meets up with Warden Cole while he was having a meeting with some future villains of this IP that will probably never see the light of day. And we get some more boring exposition.
You are mistaken, Mr. Lee. The protocol isn't about death. It's about life. Our future lies out there. Our destiny. But we were not built for life in space. This fragile shell holds us back. We have to evolve if we are to survive.
Says the guy who's running a prison on a frozen moon of Jupiter, which means that you are already in space. You people seem to be doing just fine with the technology that you currently have. Hell, you even grew vegetation on this moon. How is being physically stronger more suitable for life in space? You need brains, not muscles. Any fucking ways, Cole decides to have Captain Ferris, the Alpha, fight against Jacob to determine which living being is stronger, a normal human or the one with the virus. And now we get to the final boss of the game, which is bullet pointing all the mistakes that were used throughout this entire game. Namely, easy dodging, garbage guns, minions distracting me from the boss, slow healing, and terrible weapon switching. How climatic striking distance? If you haven't figured it out by now, this boss is trash.
Know your fucking place, trash!
You think you've beaten us? Ferris was weak, an imperfect vessel. But in that sample is the key to unlocking a centuries-old dream. That's not failure, Mr. Lee. That's progress. And it belongs to me.
Wait a second, you just had Ferris fight against Jacob to learn who is superior, and Jacob just proved that humans are stronger than mutant creatures. Yet you still intend to use the virus for the future of humanity? This game is devoid of logic anyway, so who cares? Just end the game already.
Tell me, Mr. Lee, what do you want?
I'll tell you what I want. I want my sister back, fucker!
What? So if you were a hologram this whole time, then why the hell did you have a meeting with these guys in this building with yourself as a projection to them? Couldn't you have done this meeting at your initial location with your real face at your current place where your enemies would not spy on your private discussions? That's just like having me do a meeting call from my laptop at home, then appear in this laptop at school, and have discussions with other people who appear on a different laptop in the same location. You know what I mean? This is honestly one of the worst plot twists that I've witnessed in recent memory. You shocked everyone for the wrong reasons.
Don't think you've stopped us. The data gathered here will carry the protocol to the next phase. As for you...
Self-destruct sequence initiating.
Oh yeah, a self-destruct system. I totally didn't see that one coming. as expected, Jacob kills Danny, they run for the escape pod, and surprise surprise, there is only one pod for one person. Jacob stays behind to finish what he started and have Danny escape with this tube as evidence to expose Cole. Wait a minute, I rewatched this cutscene with both of them together again, and I do not recall a single frame where Jacob hands over the tube to Danny. Details, man, they are missing. Jacob kills some zombies, he gets a hologram call from Dr. Mahler, and the game ends with, you guessed it, a jump scare. So that was the Callisto Protocol. But wait, we're not done yet. Because Striking Distance had the audacity to make us pay extra for the true ending of this game. Think about it, the base game costs like $70 at launch, yet they still ask you for more if you wanna know how the game really ends. The DLC just came out recently and I finished it twice, and you will think they took the feedback from the base game to make this piece of additional content worth the $15 price, right? Well, what do you know? The final transmission offers nothing new to the table, and it did not save the game whatsoever. Why? Here's a small summary. The DLC begins right where we left off at the end of the base game, and the first half of the DLC is basically the same as the base game. You fight the exact same enemy types, and you use the same weapons and tactics that you already used before. It is not until the second and final act of the DLC where you do get a new weapon to fight against these new enemies called Biobots. Speaking of which, it was said during the marketing that this DLC will feature new enemies to take on, and I am asking myself, where? Because the Biobots are the only new enemies you will encounter throughout this DLC, and the rest is history. When I had my very first encounter with one of these robots, I was testing it to see how dangerous or different they were compared to the old enemies. And as you view this footage, all I was given in this scenario was disappointment. The Biobot has the exact same fucking attack pattern, and I did not have any issues beating it to death. Are you kidding me? Did the devs not take the criticism from the base game at all? Did they think we wanted to see enemies with the same abilities? Did they even think at all?
How do you fuck that up?
It doesn't help the fact that they brought back what everyone hated about the base game, crawling through vents, but this time they added traps into those. I also shouldn't forget to mention that the final boss, which is a mutant Dr. Mahler, just isn't good. I will say it is a little bit better than the boss from the main game, but it's still terrible. It was completely ruined by his jump attack that staggers me and steals my HP a tiny bit. This isn't the worst part though, it's the ending of the DLC where I realized that the developers from Striking Distance just gave up on this IP completely, because it is committing one of the worst sins in all media. The ending of Final Transmission shows Jacob piloting his supposed to be destroyed ship, and then we are transiting to him strung with wires around his body, and Mahler operating on his core device to share more evidence with Danny, so she can expose Cole and his corporation. And yes, this means that everything Jacob did throughout this whole DLC was all in his head. It was all just a dream. So Jacob was like dead or injured the whole time, and he lost all of his limbs during the ending of the main game. How did that happen? And how did Dr. Mahler manage to drag his body from Warden's tower to her operating room? Just whatever. Mahler succeeds in transferring data to Danny, and the DLC ends with Mahler and Jacob being crushed to death by the falling debris. And the devs had the audacity to make a post-credit scene whose only purpose is to make us crack a smile.
Hey, where'd everybody go? Mahler! Louise! I'm not dead yet. I'm alive. I mean, Jacob's dead, but I'm still alive. This is Josh. Can somebody please let... Whoa! What the fuck happened to my legs? What the fuck happened to my legs? Can somebody get me out of here? And bring me my goddamn legs!
What, am I supposed to laugh because you broke the fourth wall? Anyways, that was the Callisto Protocol as a whole, and thank heavens it's over! this game was just not good. And that's a shame because it was one of my most anticipated titles of the last year. I didn't experience any issues that it had at launch, so I can't say anything about them. But I do have good things to say about the game though. The visuals are breathtaking. This is probably the best looking game of the current generation so far. Just look at the character models and the particle effects. Everyone responsible for the art of this game did their job flawlessly. Also, the audio design is just as good as the art design. Can't say anything negative about it. Lastly, there were a few instances where I did feel satisfied with the combat, and some finished moves were very cinematic. Jacob does show his badassery a lot throughout this game. Unfortunately, those are the only positives that I can think of, because the game wasted its great ideas on a bad execution. This is one of the best examples of graphics don't mean anything if the gameplay is crap. They went for such a safe execution, and even so, they didn't even try to make anything interesting with it. The characters are bland, the gameplay is so repetitive, the setting of the game is very forgettable due to the lack of backtracking system, there are so many plot holes that made the story less intriguing, and the main villain was just lazily written. The one thing that disappointed me the most was the underuse of Captain Ferris. How can you have Sam Witwer, the Star Killer, or Darth Maul if you are a fan of the Clone Wars? Play a character that only serves 10 minutes screen time in this 10-hour experience. Sam was literally the best part of the game and you barely put any use of his amazing acting. I don't mean to sound biased, but after playing a game like A Plague Tale Requiem, this game just had no reason to be extremely low in terms of content. The explorable areas were empty, the combat doesn't have much to offer, the characters were lacking personality, and the lore did not impress me at all. Overall, I didn't learn anything new from the Callisto Protocol and I feel like I wasted my time for nothing. I didn't give a single damn about the characters, I was tired of the combat after like 5 hours, the story was soulless and it missed the mark about the survival horror genre. I don't consider it a bad game, it's just mid, but it had no reason to be just okay. And there's nothing wrong with doing something different or new as long as you're doing it right. Alright, I think I've said everything I needed to say, so let's go to my verdict. So if you are a fan of sci-fi horror and you just love beating some zombies to death in a linear experience, the Callisto Protocol might be just for you. However, if you go into this game expecting survival horror like Dead Space or Resident Evil, I would not recommend it in the slightest. So I suggest you save your money for Dead Space Remake instead and skip this one. Despite all the complaints I had for this game, I still think there's potential for striking distance to create something good and memorable for the survival horror genre. If they're gonna make a sequel to the Callisto Protocol, then the feedback from this game should be their biggest priority. Nobody wants a sequel which plays exactly the same as the first game. As Leon would say, this time, it has to be different. Thank you so much for watching my review on the Callisto Protocol. I plan to do more videos like this in the future because I love talking about video games and sharing my opinions on them. If you liked what you see here, please consider liking the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Again, thanks for watching and as always, farewell.